Hey everyone, it's Ellen and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about a fun wet-on-wet watercolor technique that a lot of painters use to keep the water kind of still wet on the paper. Super easy tutorial. I go over the step-by-step, any skill level as well. The more advanced, the more techniques you put into it. The less advanced, you kind of do the simple technique. There's no need to freak out about that you can't do this. You can totally do this. Anybody can do this. Come on. We're going to be splattering paint, putting in paint, spraying paint. It's a lot of fun. Also, I have a photograph of the field that I took for my Patreon members. So if you're a Patreon member, you can download the photograph to use as well, but it's not necessary. If you don't know what Patreon is a place where people support my channel. I have ad-free videos, traceables, photos there, exclusive tutorials on Thursdays, and a live stream in the top tier. It's just a place people go and support my channel. So let's get painting. Alright guys, for this tutorial I'm going to go over my supplies. A piece of Arch 100% cotton cold pressed paper. It's like a 7 by 10. I'll be using a sea sponge. You can get these really cheap anywhere. I would use a laminated surface. So this is like a portable palette, that I have, and it's plastic. If you have a piece of plastic, it would be great. Laminated wood, whatever you have. And I'm going to prop it up on this container of my paint, so it's like a 1 inch high. So it has like a slight lean, going down. My paints, as I always use them, I'll go over them as I use them. So they're always in the description box. I might be using some acrylic ink today, Liquidtex white acrylic ink, or you can use white gouache. You can play with a spray bottle if we have it handy. I don't know if I'll use it. And I'm using my flat wash brush, just a cheap 1 inch one, and maybe my 12 Princeton Neptune. And then go back in with my number 8 Velvet Touch Long Series brush. So this is a little trick that a lot of people who love to do wet on wet use to, keep the paper wet longer. And I also have my photograph here that I took. If you ever follow me on Instagram, I took the dog for a walk in this place near us, and I took some photographs. It's kind of cool. It looks kind of like autumn kind of colors, late summer autumn colors. So if you're a Patreon member, you'll get the photograph. If you're not, you can just watch me look at this. It's just really, you don't even need the photograph. You can just do this yourself. Now, as you notice, it's almost like a straight line going like 1/4 down. This tiny little birdhouse, but you can't really see it here. And all these little weeds and, Paynes lace kind of in the field. This is just a loose, watercolor. I don't even care. I'm just looking at the photograph for inspiration. I don't even know if I'm going to do anything that's exactly like that. So, but I wanted to show you the trick about the wet on wet and what it means, right? But first, we should mix up some colors ahead of time, because when you mix up the colors ahead of time, you're prepared and ready to go when you go to paint. So I'm just going to grab any kind of brush that I have. I have a number 10 here. Obviously, get some nice deep dark greens in here, right? You get some reddish browns and some greens, but I don't have to follow it to a T. I can make everything in this picture monotone or neutral, like browns. So I've got my burnt umber here. I'm going to loosen this up. I have a new color, Paynes Gray, that I've been playing with. I'll mix it in the burnt umber. Whoa, it's all just black, isn't it? Yep, it's all just black. I'm just going to play around with some of the colors, and I'm going to add some brown here. I'm going to grab some yellow. Take that same yellow, add some peacock blue, make a nice green. Right? And it's just a little greens up here. So for the darker greens, I have the Prussian blue. And I'll grab some yellow. Ooh, more yellow for a deep green. And you can add a little burnt umber to that, or red, mixing up my paints. All right, so you take the sea sponge, you get it damp. I have a big thing of water here. So you just dip it in, squeeze it out. And you just take the sea sponge and go across the back of the paper. Also, this technique, you don't have to tape down your paper, and it actually dries flat. It's a beautiful technique. And you flip it, and it will stick. You can feel it stick to your, your surface that is, like I said, like a laminate. So if you had like a piece of wood that has like polyurethane, or just like a piece of plastic like this. So now I've got this whole thing wet. Beautiful thing. Now there's no sky here. If I wanted to change it up, I could put a sky in, right? But I don't have to. So I might do the greens and put in some blues. I might grab some cobalt. Let's see, let's play around. I'm not going to actually follow the picture to a T. I'm going to grab the cobalt. I'm going to add some sky, even though there's no sky. Right? Take some of those deeper greens. It just stays wetter longer, this paper, when you do that. It's a technique also to hold the paper down. Oh, I went right ahead into the dark. Kind of a faux pas, but I don't care. I'm just playing right now with greens. This is just a loose landscape. See, I'm just taking this flat wash brush and I just kind of take, you're watching me do this, tapping the color. I got some light green I'm tapping in here, tapping in some dark, grab some of that brown. I'm getting that dark color across like you see here in this band. It's like a nice band. Now, I had a little sky in mine. I could kick the sky out if I wanted to, but I kept it in there. You see how you just take a photograph for inspiration? You don't have to follow everything to the T, guys. You know, I wanted to put a sky in, I put a sky in. I'm adding the darker colors, see? That gray, brown, and the green here. And the trees kind of do this bleed naturally because it's already wet. Grab some of that yellow, kind of looks like a yellow ochre color. Might want to clean my brush a bit. Grab that yellow. Now this one's got more red tones. I have a burnt sienna I could use. This is a new color I bought also. Loving playing with new colors. Always try new things, guys. I'm not saying buy every single color, but it's fun to play with new colors. Oh yeah, rusty. You get that rusty. Woo, that's a great color if you like painting some Italian buildings. I'm gonna go back in and add a little more browns to that. See, I played with the color. And it's a little more red, so maybe I'll add my orange red color in here. Woo. Still very wet, by the way. And so did this bleed thing up there. Grab some Prussian blue. And this like Paynes gray. Get some more yellow in here. Get that green color tone. And that green. Get that dark trees. Dibble dabble, right? It just stays wet on wet longer. Just going back in here, some Prussian blue, getting a little bit darker. With that dark band kind of forming again. There. I could even take some burnt umber and go in here, just kind of holding the brush on its side. So I'm still using this flat wash brush. That's my band. I'm not going to have this harsh line. I'm using it for inspiration. So now I'm going to take this yellow. It's got more green in my brush, so it kind of made it more of a greenish yellow. Might have to add some burnt sienna into it to get it back to like a brownish yellow, or even some burnt umber. Oh heck, just a teeny bit of the Paynes gray is going to change that color too. Oh yeah, see? I want it like, yeah, see, get some yellow in there. If I want it more gray, get that Paynes gray, really go in there and just kind of fill in that yellow. The gray tone. So in here, we're going to have fun. We're going to do some wet on wet splattering with the acrylic ink. Or, like I said, if you don't have this, use gouache. So now I'm taking some browns. It's kind of still damp. See, you feel it's still damp. It's kind of, if you wanted to really kind of lift it up, bleed a little bit, ooh, get jiggy with it. You know, I really lifted that paper up. I kind of love that bleed that just went down. That's kind of like a nice abstract. See all these happy accidents that happen? Oh, Paynes gray. Let's get some green in there. Using this brush, I'm just kind of playing, going like this. This is the fun part. See, I'm tapping and moving my arm down. Now, this is going to be a little trick. This is why I talked about the spray bottle. So I'm going to tap in some greens here. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, tap. I'm holding the brush on its side, by the way. So you can see the darker greens. I'm going to grab some of that cobalt and some yellow. You just get different color greens when you mix different color blues with the yellow. See, I'm inspired by the movement. And I'm going to grab my skinny brush, my Princeton 8 long round, for a couple of reasons. Mix up something. Just want to go like this. Get some hard, dark lines in there also with the Paynes gray, so it's a little thicker paint. And I'm going to grab some of this yellow, Prussian blue, yellow, really thick. You can see that paint is really thick. See, I'm just making those little marks. You see the grass. This is just like an expressionistic way of doing the, I got that Paynes gray in there. Woo! Just taking the tip of your brush. Experiment, guys. If you want that harsh line, you could take this brush right now and kind of like, see I'm kind of tapping and kind of going in across, giving that line. If you're really dead set on that division, you know, you don't have to be though. It has kind of like an ethereal kind of quality. It's not this harsh line. It's a little more softer. Mine is a little more softer. Go in, grab that. I mixed all the colors in that burnt sienna because I'm crazy like that. Just tapping, tap, 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 tap. Okay, so now I did that with the lines, right? This is why I talk about the spray bottle. Ooh, crazy time. Here we go. Lift it up. This thing's still sticking, by the way, without tape. What happens when you do the spray bottle? Oh, yes. So exciting. Just a lot of fun. Obviously, it's a mess on the bottom of your desk, right? So you want to mop that up. Ooh, but look at that. Very exciting. Very wet, but very exciting. I kind of love that soft, you can see the sway. You know, almost like, why did I put the marks in if I just erased it? But you can still kind of see some of the lines, right? Now it's very wet. Now I'm going to go back in with some of those greens. They're going to bleed. Darker green, very thick paint, minimal water. Just kind of go in here, tapping in these like stems you see here. We want it kind of wet though, because we wanted to do that bleed technique with the acrylic ink and gouache. So I'm going to get a little bit darker in here. I'm going to add some browns, some greens. And it's not going to show up white that well if you don't have dark tones in here. So I'm grabbing blues and grays and greens, still doing those same marks. It's just playing, filling up that paper. Woohoo. Very expressionistic. You can also, I didn't mention this, but grab a scraping tool, either a credit card or a stick or a branch, and go like that. Scrape in some of the marks of like the branches. It's going to add some more depth and texture to your design. I'm using a nib that I don't really use anymore. And look at all those cool little lines you see. See them up close? Just really kind of cool. You know, if you have a credit card, of course mine's hiding now at this point because I do everything real-time tutorial. Well, I can't find the credit card, but you can take even a piece of cardboard or something, and you can just scrape, scrape, remove some of the paint. Trick with this is to remove it when it's kind of damp and not super dry. Get these cool lines. Mine keeps folding back into it because it's very damp, because remember we painted the back, right? So at this point you can still, all I see is like these blue dots. That happened, dot, 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 dot. The paint kind of separated. So I'm going to go back in and get some greens in there. It's still very wet, so I can play around with the color a little bit. Didn't like that. See, you see these blue, like bullseyes. No. No, no, no. We don't want that. So I'm just going to paint some of the dark green. Fix those little bullseyes right over the blue. Kind of mush it around a little bit. We don't want bullseyes. That's going to look kind of funky. And again, get that line in there. Add a little Paynes gray. Yeah, those bullseyes were looking kind of funky. All right, see, I love the twig. I mean, the twig, the nib that created those kind of sharp lines. And then again, as it's starting to dry, you can put some of the nice thick green paint and stems. But now, let's test out using the acrylic ink to make those beautiful Queen Anne's lace. It separates when it hits the paper. I've done this in many tutorials. I'm going to grab not such a great brush because you don't want to use your good brushes. Let's try a little splatter. I always take a brush or another brush and kind of, or it could be like even just a pen, and tap on top of that. So this would be great for the little splatters of the Queen Anne's lace. Gets this kind of like funky atmospheric look. Does it look like the Queen Anne's lace in the field? It looks great. Now you can go from board. And if you want the bigger ones, say Queen Anne's lace, some bigger ones, just take the brush and kind of tap it in a bigger spot. See, I'm just doing tippy taps. To make bigger ones. Try not to do a lot of them. You can get, you know, carried away. It's easy to get carried away. It's good to have a few big ones. And then when these dry, then we can go back in with our brush and paint the little stems a little tighter. But right now, I mean, I love it right now. I mean, it's so pretty. Did this take much effort? Heck no. Right? It's just an inspiration from the colors are like more green than this, but you can just change all that yourself. You can change that with the paint colors you use. Now I did more greens, obviously in here. I could go back and add more brown tones. Get my other brush, just my nice Princeton 8 long round. Got a lot of green, so we can go back with that brown. We've got the burnt umber, burnt sienna, browns, Paynes gray. Still very wet. Oh, the beauty of this wet on wet technique. It lasts a long time. See? Go in and add some browns. Just taking my brush, using the tip, making some branches. It's still bleeding. The thicker the paint, the less the bleed. So this is very watery. I'm going to try and make it less watery. More thick. And should bleed a lot less. And maybe you want to highlight kind of going around one of the little blooms. See how I'm making this a little darker? Coming down on this section on this side. That's how you add a little more interest. You know, it can't all be like one monotone. Maybe out in here, like you can see, like in the photograph, there's a little darkness in here. Always squint your eye, by the way, to see the value. And then there's a little darkness in here, and a few scattered dark kind of branches in here. I'm really not taking much effort to do this. Just making the little scrapes, little branches. If you want to get real technical to paint each little branch, knock yourself out. I find it's not necessary. I'm adding in some more yellow greens here. So you can grab the yellow, peacock blue, and it's very thick paint, so it shouldn't bleed as much. But that's pretty much it. Like, you know, this is the simple technique to do this kind of look. Like I said, you can go back in and add, like you can see this like branches coming through the field. When this dries, you can get really technical, putting little branches if you want. Adding little actual leaves. You can add some leaves that aren't even in the photograph. But like I said, I want you to play. So you can add some leaves, bigger leaves, darker. This is where you get really creative. Still very damp and sticking flat to that board. That's the beauty. See, I'm just going to add some little daps. Call them little doob daps of the darker tone. And it's always great to highlight the dark color underneath the very light white, because then it will really stand out. And you can throw in little pops of color too if you want to make it like, you know, it's still kind of a summer field. See, that's a little too much popped up here. I don't want it to splatter up here, but I'm going to go fill that in with the green. With pinks and purples, so it's like a wildflower field. The same technique can be used for that. Taking out that white splatter. Some of the sections that just went up a little too crazy up here. And that's pretty much it, guys. I don't think I need to show you how to draw little branches. I think you guys are so smart. You guys can do little leaves. So I scraped these little, see, you can see the little teeny twigs. The bigger, like the tool you use to scrape, the more you'll see. And right next to that, I'll just tap little dots of like little leaves. It's just going to be like really delicate looking. See that up close? I just tapped along the, you know, the edges of that little scrape. Can make little leaves. Just adds another dimension, something really unique to it. And that's it. That's all there is to it, to something like this. It's super fun. You leave this painting on this, you know, tool that you have, like either, like I said, plastic, laminated, whatever, and it will dry completely flat. I did the one for Patreon, and it's like, you know, it has a tiny buckle on this one because I removed it, but if you leave it, it will be super flat also. So I hope you guys enjoy this. A lot of fun to play with different techniques. Like I said, you just take a sea sponge. If you don't have a sea sponge, use your brush, a big wide brush, wet the back, flip it, wet the front, and then we just go play with wet on wet. I mean, that's the beauty of wet on wet. You're creating all kinds of fun things. And you, like I said, go back in and you can fill in once it's dry, because now it's just going to keep bleeding a little more. I mean, it doesn't bleed as much in here because now it's still drying. The more it dries, the less it will bleed. But this is what you do. You just go and play with adding little branches, little leaves. And this could be a wildflower field. Doesn't have to be all like Queen Anne's lace, kind of, you know, something like that. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy this. If you like this, please leave a comment below. Tell me what your thoughts are on this wet on wet technique. Try it out yourself. See how you like it. And yeah, that's it. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you haven't hit the bell notification button, please do so you know my tutorials are up. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and have a great day.